Hello, everyone. This is Molly from the Casually Molly podcast, and I just wanted to introduce you to my friends at the Natty Cat. This one is for you cool cats and kittens who can't get enough of wordplay and fur babies. The Natty Cat's natural soy candles feature inventive scent combinations in glass jars with clever kitties on the labels. Hand-purred with locally sourced natural soy wax, the Natty Cat's candles wood wicks create a cozy fireside crackling sound, perfect for curling up on the couch. Remember, for all of your candle and scented oil needs, please visit our friends at the Natty Cat either on Facebook or Instagram.
Have you ever wanted to get your shit together? Scrap it, look through the lens and capture it. But first world problems are getting you down. Disabled, salty, needing a laugh to fix that frown. Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy. Just remember that you can always casually subscribe to the podcast via audio and also on video for YouTube and our Facebook page. But enough about selfless promotion right now. Let's move on to our most important guest of the day here. The only guest we have for this episode, to be honest with you. Give it up for Phil Woodmore. Yes. Phil, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. Phil is a local. Yeah, how would you describe yourself? Because you have a lot of different hats, Phil.
I
so.
do. Yeah. How do I say that? St. Louis native, and originally would consider myself a music educator. I taught in middle school choir in Ferguson, Florissant, and Rockwood for 14 years. And moved on beyond that to compose some music. So I had composer to my list. And a vocal coach locally and in New York and Arizona. So also definitely music educator and vocal coach. And a businessman. I opened a business called Woodmore Music several years ago. Started a foundation in 2008 to scholarship children that needed help with getting ready for college auditions. So I wear lots of different hats. Choir director.
Yes, I was about to say. I was like, I don't even know if I can sum up everything. So what do you not do, Phil?
I don't do IT work. Sound engineering. There's a good one. I'm not good with sound engineering.
Well, that's why we hired sound engineers for today. So don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's fantastic. I even learned a few things I didn't even know. But what's kind of funny about Phil is that you and I met randomly on a patio.
Right.
Very much a Midwestern thing. You're
Right.
just sitting there, and I remember we were at the patio, and it was I forget, it was somewhere like off of McKnight. I forget where.
Katie's Pizza.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and we're all like 6 feet apart.
Uh-huh.
We're all like sitting out there. And my friend Tony Roper, who used to be, she was on the radio here. Now she's over in Springfield, but she was cracking me up because she's like, Phil, hey. And we just get talking, and she's like, do you know Phil? And I'm like, I don't, but I do now. It's so nice to meet you. And then I was like, here's my card, be on my podcast. And now we're finally
Here we
sitting
are.
here. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yes. But that is do you just randomly meet people and they're just amazed by you? What's going on?
Well, I can't vouch if they're amazed by me or not, but yes, I really am out and about in the public. I guess the bigger thing for me is not necessarily just meeting new people, but bumping into my old students.
Oh, yeah.
And since I've taught for so many years, I've taught well over 3,000 students, so I have to just kind of cautiously move forward when people run up to me with their eyes bright and just be really nice, because sometimes I know who they are and sometimes I don't. don't. So that's the bigger thing, is running into former students. But it was actually nice to be out that day because, we haven't gotten out very much. So it was a pleasant surprise to run into Tony and meet new friends. It was cool. It was a good outing. Checked off the list.
Well, I loved your friend that was just along for the ride that was with you.
Andy. So I actually just called him on my way down here because he flips houses and has a construction business down here in the city. So I called him to let him know I was coming down. And he actually so the reason we met is because of him. So let's talk about Andy for a minute.
Andy.
So he forced me out of the house. It's one of my best friends since I was 16, 17 years old. And I've just been at home chilling. He was like, we need to go do something. I was like, I don't want to catch the coronavirus. He was like, we'll sit on the patio. He set it all up. I'll find a place. It'll be good. And so that's the reason I was there.
Well, that's so
shout
funny.
out to Andy E.
Yay, Andy. That's kind of what Tony did for me, where I was like, I hadn't really gone out that much either. Like, I basically came like here and then work, and that was it, And so when we ended up on that patio, I was like, all right, like everybody's taking precautions. And because, you read everything about all these people who aren't. So you're just like,
and you just never know.
You just never know.
I feel.
Do I trust anybody? But I was like, all right, I can do this. I can order a pizza and
sit here and eat.
And feel good.
And feel good about it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I felt the same way. Yeah.
So thanks. I just remember how I was like, sorry, Andy, we're just like having a conversation. And he's like, oh, I love it.
Yeah, he was loving it. He sure was. He just smiles. He's been one of my number one fans for a long time. He's been proud of all the work that I'm doing. So he loves when that type of stuff happens. Yes, he was genuinely excited.
It was very sweet. Like, he's just eating his food and he's like, yeah, wow. And my girlfriends are like, isn't this so fun? Like, we're here. Like, this is. So we both have a great, Phil and I were talking about this earlier, and I know this happens not just only in St. Louis, but in a lot of places. You think it's like a big city, but you kind of have a lot of
really
intertwining friends and people. And I told you I was involved in theater and still am, not maybe as heavily as much since now I do more comedy and working this podcast. But let's kind of talk about you. You have a lot of experience like you talked about earlier. Yeah. And one of the things we talked about on that patio was that you had Antigone and Ferguson. And you were like, oh, I think I read something in the New York Times that there was like, it was going to happen. And then, with COVID going on, what's been the journey for Antigone and Ferguson? And kind of give us a background, too.
Oh, my goodness, quite a journey. Okay, here we go.
Here we go, everybody.
So we got to roll back to 2016. Actually, I want to roll back a little farther. So as I was designing my career in St. Louis, I really wanted to give back to this community all of my passion in music and passion for people. And so as I started to set this up, the school thing was going great. I loved middle school thinkers. I love helping them design how they're going to move forward in their future and all of those things. And people think I'm crazy for teaching middle school, but it is what I love doing. It is my gift, and I embrace that. That's fine. If it's not your gift, it's mine, and I definitely enjoy it. I would go back to middle school teaching at any point. It's definitely a joy. So I set that up, and then outside of that, just kind of aligning with my teaching in middle school, started a program at COCA, the Center of Creative Arts in U City, and really helped and collaborated designing their voice program, worked with Shauna Flanagan there for many years to really start designing that program, worked with a slew of students. Will, that we just talked about, that's working
Will
there now, is a student from COCA as well. And so I just started aligning myself with the community through COCA out in U City, through my work in Rockwood, out in Chesterfield. And then in 2009, I linked up with then officer, now detective John Leggett, who needed a choir director for a group of police officers. We got together, put together something for 9/11, smash hit, another new job for me, and I became the director of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department Choir, which was phenomenal. I didn't really know. There's only a few, I think 4 or 5 in the country that are established. So we were kind of way up on the map.
I'm learning too.
And I'm bringing the police choir up because that's a direct connection with Antigone and Ferguson. And so, anyway, I really was trying to juggle many things. So my year looked like this. Let's go back to 2014, 15. Let's go to 15, 16, the year before it happened. So I was teaching well over 300 students a year, which was a very impressive amount of choir students for middle school. And I loved being the popular teacher, but then I hated it when I was prepping, right? Because I still had to prep for 300 kids,
exactly.
regardless of how cool I was. And so I usually went to school the week before everybody came back to get all their files set up, get my classroom organized. I themed the classroom every year, so it was something fun. We did like a sports theme, we did a Hollywood theme, we did a Broadway theme. I think that year it was like an emoji thing. I found everything emoji and created everything out of emoji. So just something to pull the classroom together and for the kids to, they're 11, kids to be excited.
Yeah.
So I go to school the week before the teachers come, which now with the school, well, this year is different, but then with school starting like August the 13th, remember back when we went to school and it started in September after Labor Day, like normal things? Like
normal times.
Yeah, and then not anymore.
Remember when?
So exactly. So, teacher meetings started August the, 7th. So I would go back August the 1st and just really start working in my classroom. So I did that. Greet my student. I have my teacher week. I greet my students. We get rolling. During the school year, one year, I actually worked full-time at Coca and full-time at Crestview. So I would leave Crestview at 2:30 or 3 o'clock and drive to Coke and teach classes in the evening.
You're like determined, man.
3 days a week.
Yeah.
So I'd streamlined it by that point where I would work at Coca all day Saturday. So I would get there at like 8 a.m. on Saturday and stay to 6 o'clock. So I was at Coca all day Saturday, taught during out the week. I was a minister of music at my father's church. So I was at church all day Sunday with my dad. And so 7 days a week, every week, never took a break. I vocal directed musicals. That's where I met Will. I vocal directed the musicals at Marquette High School for many years. So I was vocal directing musicals, all kinds of different stuff. So my year was always jam-packed. And we get to the end of the school year, and then I transition right from Crestview to full-time at Coca. And I'm teaching camps every week, Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. I'm vocal directing their musical, which rehearsal started at 3:30 and go to 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And then Saturdays, again, I would have voice students, and then Sundays is a church with my dad. So I worked year-round, 7 days a week.
No break.
No break.
Nothing.
So this particular summer, I decided one of my... a dear family friend, after being a voice student, the Savages invited me down. They were in Florida at the time to hang out in their beach house. And I was like, well, if I can take a little mini vacation and go down there, pretty much for free, just get a ticket and go hang out in their beach house and just take a breather, I'm going to do it. So I booked 5 days down in Florida. And it was literally, so the show ended at Coca on, July the 28th. We closed. I was leaving on July the 29th, and I had to be back on August the 3rd to start. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was literally, I stuck these days in there.
Yeah.
And the day I was flying out, the morning I was flying, I was rushing around and getting my stuff. I get this random phone call. Well, it's not random yet. I got this phone call from Coca. Mm-hmm. I, probably said some choice words, but I was done with Coca, didn't want to deal with it, ready to get on this plane. But just in case something was going on, I answered the phone. And it was a woman that was like, is this Phil Woodmore? And I was like, yeah. You called me.
You're like, yes.
And she was like, exactly. I was like, she was like, okay, yes. She was like, my name is Christy Burleson, and I'm a friend of Brian Dory's. And I was like, okay. She was like, we're hunting your number down. Brian does all these really cool shows, and we're looking for somebody that might be able to work with him and get a choir together. Is it okay if I give him your phone number? And I was like, well, I mean, I guess that's fine. I'm like literally about to catch a flight. So if you could tell him to call me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because, I'm doing all this stuff today. So, he calls me the next day and says, I'm Brian Dory's. We're putting together a project for St. Louis. It's going to be called Antigone and Ferguson. It's a version of the play Antigone. And we need you to put together a choir of differentiated thinkers. And we mainly want police officers in the group so that we can sit down and start discussing all of these issues that are going on in St. Louis between law enforcement and the community. I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, well, I am your guy because I direct the police choir in St. Louis.
And he was like, exactly.
And he was like, that's exactly how we found you. We found an article, which you did something with them, and it said Coca on there. We Googled Coca, found your number. So it was totally this organic thing of them Googling to find me. Mm-hmm. And So I'm going to throw this part of the story in and then I'll rush to the end. So he called me and said he wanted me to put together a choir. I'm an excellent event planner. If anybody needs an event planner, I'm your guy. Love planning events, love putting everything together. And so organizing this choir, especially with my education background, I'm like, no problem. I'll get these different people together. I got this group at Coca. I have these students in my voice studio, the police choir, these students in my church, or people singing from my church choir. So I just brought all these people together. And the beauty of it is they had no idea what was going on. I was like, hey, I have this project I want you to jump in on. And they all said yes. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Had no idea what it was. And they were just like, yeah, let's do it. And so I agreed to that, felt good about it, started typing out the email to everybody. Then he calls me the next day and says, hey, well, let's back up. So the first day I was like, I'm just thinking, being all the amazing stuff. He's from New York. He's from Brooklyn. All the amazing stuff that goes on in New York. I'm not up with everything. This is some cool project that, has just traveled the country and I'm just jumping in. And he was like, no, we're starting from ground up. My brother is working on the music with I think it was a grad student or professor up at Notre Dame. His brother was at Notre Dame, and we want you to collaborate on the music. I have to be honest and say I rolled my eyes. Like, I don't want to call some stranger in Notre Dame to collaborate on making music, but I'm like, okay,
right, I'll do it.
Fine. So anyway, so that was the agreement. So then he calls me the next day. This is where I got bamboozled. He calls me the next day and he says, hey, my brother and I were looking at your resume and we think you should just rock and roll and write this music yourself.
And you're like,
and I laughed. I was just like, kind of backed up to everything I just told you. I was like, let me tell you what I do within a year.
Yeah.
Like, I have 0 minutes and 0 seconds to write music, and that's not my degree. That's not my gift. Like, I can put the choir together in an hour, but and he was like, no, we think you're the person and we think you should do it. And I just have to pause and say he had full faith in me from the beginning, a stranger he met online. And that was the reason I said yes. I mean, he never thought that it wouldn't be a success, never thought that I wouldn't be able to get it done. And, all he knew was what he had read online. So I'm like, this is crazy. So being a man of faith, I called my father and I was like, hey, this guy wants me to write this music. He asked for it to be gospel music, which I kind of raised my brow at. I was like, I don't know about this blending of the church and this ancient Greek stuff, just getting my dad's opinion on that, being a pastor. I don't want to shame the church and trying to make a mockery of anything, really trying to be authentic in my process. And my dad kind of explained, from what angle I would be doing this and, how I would view it. And I just have to rush ahead to say this. I quickly learned that this is just, ancient Greek tragedy is another form of like church. It's another form of religious experience. I wasn't educated on that. And that was the main reason he asked for that, is that there's so many alignments there that can be brought out from this. So again, just a very beautiful collaboration right from the beginning. I agreed to this. I said yes. And in 29 days, I sat down and wrote an entire score for a musical from scratch.
Yeah.
I read the script 3 times, did some script analysis, took out the sections that were supposed to be songs, analyzed that further, created those into lyrics, and sat down and wrote 5 songs for the show, and then a 6th song that was just a gospel ballad that I wrote just out from my heart to add to the work. And I put it together in about 30 days.
Oh my God, 30 days?
Yeah.
Man, I mean, I can't even brush my hair sometimes in the morning. I say that all the time. I'm like, oh, I did today. I was like, because I'm going to be on camera. I better put on some lip. I was like, you know how it is with like COVID. I'm not like really putting on a bunch of makeup.
Exactly. Am I really going to get dressed today?
That's what I said. I was like, well, I guess today I can put like a color on if we're in front of the lights. But that's fantastic. Yeah. Now, did this project come to fruition? Was it, how was it received by the general public?
So, everything was such a whirlwind because I was on such a deadline, and that's when Brian always jokes. He was like, you give somebody a deadline and look what happens. But I had so I started this in Florida, and I brought up the Florida piece because I was on my vacation, and the 3 days left in Florida was all this. I was sitting around and reading and coming up with ideas and creating, and so I rushed back to St. Louis, very motivated and energized. Well, I do have to throw in there that the second half of this, I was with students. students. So, I mean, I only had about 10 days of the 30 days that was not with students. And so once I was with my students, I really, as an educator, felt it was my duty to focus on my kids and not ignore that, part of my job.
Sure.
And so I was trying to be fully present while I was teaching. And then I would rush home and do this in the afternoon, evening, and I just had to get it done. Once I feel like once I crossed over the halfway mark, I was like, I see what's going on here and just, needing to get it finished. At first, 50% might have been a little skeptical, but once I got over that hump, it was just organizing and pulling things together. So I wrote out a score and finale. I learned finale through that and wrote everything out. The choir was on board really from day one. We set up these 3 rehearsals. And then Brian flew in town. Like, it just was like bloop, 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 bloop. So, I take you to my dress rehearsals Friday night in the Wellsprings Church in Ferguson. I'm writing a book right now about this, actually, which I guess I'll do a shameless plug at the end. But I write in my book about how I'm just sweating, and I'm, sweating bullets because I'm nervous, but it's also hot in the church, and we're rehearsing this music. I want it to be as perfect as possible, all of that. And so I think Brian is going to show up with, I don't know. I don't even know what I thought, but he said he was coming, so I knew he was coming. When he walks in with this army of people, I just, like the panic on my face. His brother came, one of his close colleagues and mentors
so he brought
came.
A posse,
yes, he showed up with his entourage, and I was like, oh my God.
So I better impress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they went and slipped in the balcony, and we sang through all the music, and I went over there in fear and trembling, was like, so what'd you think? And he's just going on and so excited. And the next day was we performed it 3 times on that first Saturday, September 17th, 2016. We started at Normandy High School and got to perform in the Little Theater where Michael Brown graduated, which was a beautiful testament. Mm-hmm. And I guess let me throw this in here. So Brian doesn't like to give any interpretation for the show. He really is a true believer that the show will interpret itself. And you as the listener, just whatever your interpretation is the interpretation.
I love that point of view.
He doesn't like to fill in gaps for you. And so the main purpose of this, we do the art form to really spark something within you. And then he pretty much has an hour and a half discussion with the audience about what's happening. It's not a talk back. It's literally he gets a mic and starts asking questions and just let the audience talk freely. Mm-hmm. And so that's the beauty of his process. He tries to make everything free. He doesn't like to pull money from this. He gets grants and everything to put these projects up.
Good for him.
So yeah, he has a really cool and specific project. Theater of War, if you want to look him up, Theater of War, Brian Dories. So anyway, we show up to Normandy High School. Dwayne Foster, the fine arts coordinator there, was really instrumental in putting all that together. And I walk in the door, PBS News is there, interviewing people, and I'm just like, what is happening? Mm-hmm. The late Reg Cathy walks in the door from The Wire. I'm like, whoa. Gloria Rubin, Samara Wiley.
It got a lot of coverage. Yeah, for sure.
I was like, wow, this is a big deal. And it's just, I could go on and on just to explain to you the feeling to hear my music on stage for the first time and just the joy of that.
It was probably a really beautiful thing to see, like how
it was surreal.
From the start where you were talking about, where you were like, I'm so busy, I'm trying to fit things in. And I think that's what I should also highlight about artistry in general. And I know you did too, and I'm going to vouch you on this one for sure, is that artists always have so much going on.
All the time.
Like, it never stops. Like, we're just like that's why I just let you go. Because I was like, I want people to hear when you're trying to explain, what you have done. Uh-huh. You just don't end up on stage with this music.
Right.
And it's just
here we are.
You're
right.
I had to build a career, get people to believe in me, do all of these things, get this. And even when we try to go on a break, it's you never end up on the break. You just don't do it. You're just okay, Yes, but then like you find somebody like Brian who you got a really passionate project and it like really has something special and meaningful to it. So you're like, well, I can't pass this up. All right, I'm going to take my research. I'm going to do this. And you're like, your posse's here. All right, my self-esteem. Okay, like who knows anymore? And what's great about it, like about projects like that, and that's why I wanted to have you share that, is like I loved how much coverage it got because people really believed in the project. Like I was just like, okay. Like, this is great, and just the fact that I love the idea that you said, or you were quoting him about talking about like how the audience needs to kind of see it, as I feel like that's the best way, in just my opinion, to sometimes have people have perspectives and join in on conversation. And I really appreciate that there are people like you and Brian, everybody really, that allowed that like a vessel of communication for that. So thank you. I think that's fantastic.
So opening day was great. I mean, it was a whirlwind. We performed 3 times to well over 1,000 people. There's a couple hundred at the little theater, and then the church I think held 500 or 600, and it was full for both of the evening performances. We met a bunch of people. Shout out to Detective John Leggett's mother, the late Norma Leggett, who got up and spoke so passionately in that opening night about truth and how we need to speak our truth and live our truth, and it's just so many great memories. So I would love to talk about that more, but the rest of the story is just as good. So let's just plow right through. So we get through opening night. I literally think this is it, right?
Yeah.
I've done all this work. I feel good about it. I feel like we have sat down and had an honest conversation. I feel like the community received it well. People received my music well. Brian was impressed by what I did. Like, I just really felt good about everything. I slept well that night, and I was ready to get back to my kids. Like, I thought that was it.
Yeah.
I was like, I did all this work. It was crazy. Nobody will ever believe that I did all that in a month, but it is what it is. It happened. I conquered.
Right.
Done.
That's how you feel. You're like, we're good.
Yes. So I go back to school. I go back to teaching. I tell my kids about it. They immediately think I'm a celebrity now that I've met, Samara Wiley. What? Oh my God, So that was all fun. And then they start Googling me left and right, to see. I was like, well, I just teach, guys. You might see
you need to be a special person to be a teacher. So,
exactly.
Yes, you're more than just a teacher.
And so anyway, we kind of got back in the groove of things, and within a week, 2 weeks, Brian calls me and says the Onassis Center wants you to come and premiere your project in New York.
What?
And I was like, drop the phone, like
my jaw dropped.
Exactly. And still thinking that this is not real. I was like thinking, how much is it going to cost a person? What do I need to do to raise the money? Blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh no, they're paying for everything, and then you guys will get paid. And I'm just like,
you're like, oh, this is a whole new level for me as a producer.
Yeah,
okay.
What? And so, I run back in the classroom. My assistant at the time at Crestview was singing in the choir, and I'm like, going nuts.
Right.
And October, I don't remember the date, but somewhere near my birthday is October the 19th. So somewhere around my birthday, I premiered my project in New York in the lobby of the Onassis Fortune 500 building on Fifth Avenue. We turned the lobby into this beautiful theater space. It was this cold, stale space, and we put up the curtains, got the chairs out, and we had church in the lobby of this building. And met a beautiful friend, Marcel Davies Lashley, who brought a choir, Voices of Hope, to collaborate with me, and made a lifelong friend out of Marcel. Taught my music to these people, via the internet for a few weeks, and had, I think, same thing, 1 or 2 rehearsals, and then we just did it.
Yeah.
And so, okay. After New York, I've achieved, right? I just wrote something that just performed in New York.
Yeah.
I'm good. Put that on my resume. I'm going to go back to teaching. My chest is going to be held high. I'm somebody important now.
Right.
Okay? So I go back to teaching, and I get another phone call. Hey, such and such college. Well, you know what I'm saying? And so it just started kind of growing. So we did this 2-year tour of the project all over the country. The next big, Grand Slam. So Onassis kind of funded the stuff in the beginning, and then the Stavros Niarchos Foundation kind of picked up in the middle, which is another major player in Greece, and started funding things that we're doing. Well, I get this phone call in the spring. Stavros Niarchos in Athens wants to fly you guys over and perform at their international conference.
Oh my God, this part I didn't even know. What? Okay, yeah.
And same thing, they bought all 35 people in my team flights to Greece, put us in this beautiful hotel. Everybody got honorariums. Wow. Everybody got per diem to eat. Mm-hmm. It was insane.
Yes.
So we performed my project, just walking out onto that stage in this beautiful opera house, and knowing that my work was going to be performed there was, just chilling. It's unreal. So we performed in Greece that first summer, and just a lot of different places. So these performances, my teaching, I was present as a teacher, but I was struggling because I was splitting myself into so many different people.
Yeah.
And so I will say for that reason, my teaching was struggling, but I worked really hard when I walked in the classroom to be in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so that second year that we were doing this touring, I kind of thought this was my new life. I would kind of teach and then kind of leave for the weekends and stuff. I had 185 days saved up. So teachers will hear me on this. When you start teaching, you're terrified to take a day off. It's just like a fear.
Yeah.
And so I had all of these days saved up because you just never take a day off. And then you get to some weird, like year 12, 14, it just stops mattering.
Yeah.
And you take a day off just because.
You're just like, I'm just taking one. Yeah.
Why not? And so I was at that point in my career where I had all these days saved up. So I knew like if I needed to take a Friday or whatever, I could, make it work. And then I get the news that Brian wants to take this off Broadway. This continues
Isn't it amazing that your hard work has like paid off though during all of this? Like, I feel like that's what people need to understand too, is like, and I'm sure a lot of people do, but it's just like all of these accomplishments that you got, like you had to start from like kind of like writing, seeing how things are going to work. And I'm so excited for you each time you take a pause because you're just like, and this snowballed and this happened and like this went on. And just because it does have such a powerful message to the story, I wanted to point out too, like how it's been received just globally, like in New York, in Greece, like in St. Louis. Like that's fantastic that artistry, and especially something that you were a part of, has touched so many people in such a wide variety of places. But continue. Sorry.
You're fine.
I was just like, wow.
So I went back to the Rockwood School District knowing there was no way I could, we did 5 weeks at the Harlem stage up in Harlem, New York, and there's no way I could just leave my kids for 5 weeks. And so I decided to take a sabbatical for the entire year. We'll take a turn after I get done with this story and talk about my PhD work.
That's fine.
But I will throw in here that Rockwood gave me a sabbatical in 2012 to go to Mizzou and be present as a student and learn and educate myself in my PhD work, which was phenomenal. It was like they didn't have to give me my job back. They didn't have to do anything. Like a lot of people have to make a decision if they're quitting to go do that, and they received me right back. And so it was huge for me. Yeah. And now I'm going in fear and trembling to ask them for a second sabbatical. Never been done ever.
Yeah.
And they approved it. It was nuts. And it just really showed the support of that district and knowing the importance of the work and where we are right now as a community, where we were then in 2017, but where we are now in 2020.
Totally. Yeah.
That they would respect that to get the project out. So I hopped up to New York. They put me up in Harlem. We did the project. It was beautiful. I'm not going to make it all bells and whistles. That year was a little rough on me because I came back to St. Louis and didn't really do much. And I didn't know what to do with myself because I had worked 4 or 5 jobs for my entire career.
It feels weird. You're lost.
I didn't know what was going on.
Exactly.
So that was a hard time for me to kind of find some direction for myself. And I really thought the project after off Broadway, I was like, oh my God, I'm about to be doing this full time and about to be this big time producer, blah, blah, blah. But it just came in little segments. Like everything was beautiful, but it just came, this as an artist, the work is there when the work is there. And that's it, and then it's not there anymore.
And it's like, well, that's like the thing too. And it's like, that's why, people, like we do it in comedy too, where like you just get addicted. Like you're show after show after project after this. And when you don't have something going on, which I think has been a struggle, especially for artists during during the pandemic at this time, you're like, wait, what? Like,
this
what
has been doing?
Like I was just talking about this the other day. Like my full 20s, especially, I dedicated my life to. I still do, but there's just something about just like making like theater your mistress or like artistry your person, you know, like, and when you dedicate yourself to something so meaningful and that disappears all of a sudden, it's a really strange concept. So I know, and like I feel for artists right now that that's what I want to ask you too. I've been seeing that you've been doing a lot of like Zoom stuff, and there was
I'll get to that.
That's something we can get into. But I was about to say, how's that working out?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, let's save that for the end.
Okay, we'll see.
Are we doing good on time?
We're on time.
I'm a chatter.
It's 11:19.
Okay, we're okay. All right.
In case anybody was wondering, whenever
you're watching this, exactly,
it's 11:19
at the
over
present
here.
Moment, right? The time that I spent following that run in Harlem, and of course I was on a high for a couple of months. Like I just performed this for 5 weeks. We did 30 performances, sold out houses every night at this historic theater in Harlem. I was there when they put up Aretha's memorial when she died, right there at the Apollo. I was around the corner. It's just unreal.
Right. Whoa.
Yeah, for real. And so I came back to St. Louis. I set up shop, and then I'll fast forward 8 or 9 months. We set up another great off-Broadway experience in Brooklyn at this beautiful church, St. Anne and Holy Trinity Episcopal Church, on Montague Street, just right in a popping area of Brooklyn, right by the Brooklyn Bridge. And the concept there is that the doors of the church would be open. So a part of this, so much to say. So a part of this whole setup that I designed was that the choir would come out and just sing this gospel music and just blow the house out. You know what I'm saying? Just come in and just knock everybody out before the show even started. And so I bring all of these singers in, and we just sing familiar gospel music, things that people would know. And that's also on purpose. Even if you're not really in the gospel, you see everybody around you is singing along and jam. You see everybody's having a good time.
Into
you know what I'm saying?
I'm
you
like
see everybody's
dancing,
having a good time.
having the best time of my life.
And so it kind of loosens people up. You see Antigone and Ferguson, and you're already like, what is this? What is about to happen? What you know what I'm saying? And that already sets like a tone, that with the music. And so anyway, they would go open the doors up at 6:30. The choir would come out. I have to talk about my dad. So my dad has performed in every show I've done. We've done over 200 shows.
Go Dad.
He plays a guitar. He's an amazing man. You can't really Google him, but you will be able to now, since he's played. I'm giving it away. So he played the guitar for all the shows. And when we were in Greece, the guy that was coming over to play Tiresias canceled at the last minute, and so they asked my dad to jump in. And I laughed. I was just like, I guess he is a preacher, so I guess
Dad,
it would be fine.
Step up.
And when I tell you, he just not standing ovations, knocked it out of the park. Never had an acting class. Never been interested in acting.
Just a natural.
It just is in his bones, and the way that he delivers this, and so. After that performance in Greece, he's been playing Tiresias ever since. And so he was reviewed in the New York Times for his performance in my show. Thanks, Dad, for taking the spotlight.
That's so sweet.
So amazing. So amazing. And so anyway, so the musicians come out, they start playing. They open the doors of the church. The choir comes out at 6:40. And we just go out and we just start wailing. And so many people were like, I was walking by and I just heard these people singing. I want to know what was happening. I was walking by and I heard this beautiful sound. I want to know what's going on. I was in my Uber and it's just everybody was saying this because the doors were open and people were showing up. The most touching one, and I'll blow right past this because I don't want to get emotional. This man walks in off the street. There's this amazing woman in the performance named Durance Blaylock, and she is such a praise and worship leader, a beautiful spirit, and she sings the song I'm Covered, the last song that I wrote. And this man was walking down the street and heard her singing and walked in to, he was just drawn really and to hear what was going on. And that's the last song. That's all he heard. He doesn't know what's going on, didn't see the show. And he stood up and said, just that I was out on the street And I heard this voice, this woman singing. It was Durant's, and I just had to come in and hear what was going on. He said, "I don't know what's happening here, but that voice just drew me in here." And he told us he'd had a stroke, and he was slurring his speech.
Yeah.
He said, "I haven't spoken publicly in 2 years."
Oh my God.
And I just had to get up and share this story. We're just all like,
oh my God,
you know.
yeah.
And it was just story after story. There was a woman in her late 90s, 98 or something, that got up, and I mean, just quick on her feet and talking, just sharing all this beautiful truth to us. It was just thing after thing. I have some moments in my book. Number one, a couple. So Brian has a panel at the end of his show where people get up and kind of lead the conversation as a model.
Yeah.
And then he goes out into the audience, and the panelists are usually, well, it's a variety of people, but he doesn't like putting celebrities on there. He doesn't like putting influencers because he doesn't want to lead the conversation. He wants it to be real people.
I agree.
But he puts people that are, influential about the topic or in the, whatever. And so this one night, this white man sitting on the panel, and, it's just another white man,
Yeah.
And so we're all moving on, no big deal. His wife was sitting on the front row. He's going on about how he's been in music. So everybody looked at me, he's like played the guitar and done all this different stuff. And then he says, "My wife and I lost our son in Sandy Hook." Just like the air goes out of the room,
God, yeah.
like we're sitting here with this man. It's not on CNN. Like this man sitting right here. Mind blowing. Gwen Carr, same thing. Eric Garner's mother walks in, sits down, and says, "I'm Gwen Carr, Eric Garner's mother." Just blown away to meet this woman that's watched her son didn't watch, but having her son being choked to death by law enforcement.
Yeah.
And she was so positive. She was so forthcoming. She wants us to move forward. It was just beautiful. And she has the Mothers of the Movement, that is a group of mothers that have experienced this, that she has put together. Leslie Head McSpadden, Michael Brown's mother was there that evening. Michael Brown Sr., Michael Brown's father, came and saw the show as well. So it's been very powerful to just start to get this collection of people in the room. So back to the choir. So the choir's singing and people are coming in. It's just this very enriching experience, and people are kind of coming together. We do this performance and we have this great conversation. We did it 50 times in Brooklyn, and it never got old, which was kind of cool to experience something different every night.
It's a classic, That's the best way to do it.
So anyway, we got done with that, and I really thought that this was my new thing. I shouldn't say this publicly, but we were prepping for the Kennedy Center next, was bringing us on, and we were getting ready to be in D.C. We were doing a huge thing in Baltimore after that. Like, things were really rolling, and then COVID.
I love how you and I are both like, we both know where this story is going.
Here we are. So I didn't really know what my direction was going to be when I saw, how we all kind of saw this, and that stuff is on the news. You know how it is. You see that stuff, all this stuff's on the news. Okay. And then when it started becoming real and in our communities, it's a little bit of a wake up call.
Yes.
The reality of you see stuff on TV and it's like, oh, this is like actually.
This is happening.
Yeah, happening.
Yeah, right now. Like here.
Yeah. So, that kind of shift of thinking and, taking things seriously. And but I'm going to back up again. So I've been doing my PhD work since 2010 at Mizzou. And my passion, my area was the child's changing voice and how their voice maturates to help them through that.
Sure.
And my dissertation was going to be on the psychological effects of the voice change for these young singers, especially young guys that go from such a boy soprano high voice to a lower voice in a matter of minutes, and performing in high stakes situations. So like these little kids that perform like on the Grammys or on Broadway or even down at the Muni, and having all that those high stakes and your voice is not doing what you want it to do. What is that like? So those were kind of things I was going to study, and then Antigone happened, and I saw how transformative this project and this specifically this music was, and so that's what I switched to, the transformative power of the music. And I interviewed a lot of people that were at the Harlem production to help build my dissertation, which is where my book comes in, but we'll get back to that. So I'm doing my dissertation work, and it just so happened I was finishing when COVID happened. So I was writing 10 hours a day. I mean, I was editing. That was what I was doing. I had to get my dissertation finished. I had to set up for my defense and blah, 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 blah. So that was all through May when I graduated. So the first part of COVID was fine. I was like, I wouldn't have gone anywhere anyway because I'm here on my laptop. That was me and my laptop.
Yep.
And so that all happened, graduated. It was exciting. Of course, anticlimactic, see my name roll on a PowerPoint from my living room, but got my diploma, all good.
At least you got the diploma.
Exactly, I got my diploma.
Roll the PowerPoint.
Exactly. So I'm the new Dr. Phil, the black Dr. Phil, the real Dr. Phil. However the billing is going to go.
That's awesome.
And just kind of started with my summer, and as you were just saying, like I had a moment of pause where like this isn't going away. I need to decide how I'm going to be relevant during this time. And so I turned my voice studio into a virtual voice studio online.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
And I was totally against that because I very much like to experience music with students and really work on technique. The students are more present when they're actually in the space, but this allowed me to set up something to keep students singing. I was shocked. I just assumed I was going to be begging people to take voice lessons because that's extra unnecessary money. I'm like, people are not going to pay me right now when everybody's scared about jobs. I immediately filled up. I posted a post. I'm doing virtual voice lessons. I got 30 students in a week.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
Because they were like, you know what?
My kid has nothing to do.
Yeah.
And they love singing, and they're sitting here doing nothing. Please, will you teach my child? I'm like, okay. And I got adults that were like, this is a little less abrasive. Like, hey, let me try this out. People on Instagram, like, I've always been thinking about lessons. What do you think about? I'm like, cool. So I'm teaching about 35 students now over just virtually over Zoom. And so that kind of kicked off quickly. I was very inspired when I finished my dissertation to form my dissertation to a book that's a little more reader friendly and a little more comprehensive and not so much jargon and research based. And so I'm right on the tail end of that, telling the story of Antigone. I haven't decided if I'm going to self-publish yet or not, but be looking for it. It's called Antigone and Ferguson, A Journey Through the Transformative Power of Music. That I'm going to be putting out hopefully later this year. And so I started working on that book. I started teaching voice lessons. Brian came up with this amazing concept to do Antigone virtually. And so we just did our first virtual performance a few weeks ago over Zoom, and it went very well. I hope he's not mad at me, but I'm about to announce that Johns Hopkins also wants us to put up a virtual presentation. So we're doing another one on October the 17th.
Okay.
That'll, be open to the public. And the beauty of this virtual presentation, there were 48 countries represented on that call.
Wow.
7,000 people, 48 countries. It was just ridiculous that we can really come together literally as a nation in that type of platform, which just made it very special. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that. Living life, trying not to get COVID.
Right. I feel like that's like I was like, Phil, how have you been doing? And he's like, the same. Yeah, and I was like, just trying not to get the virus.
Yeah, try not to get sick. So that's just kind of, the journey in a nutshell and kind of how things really formed and shaped. I guess I need to throw this in here since we're just kind of fully telling the story. Brian entrusted me with 2 other projects. So I've actually written 3 projects for him.
Oh, wow.
So Antigone is the one that, got this kind of fame and been reviewed a lot. But my second project is just as special. So right after I got done with Antigone and we knew it was a thing, he asked me what I thought about Dr. King's The Drum Major Instinct speech. And, you hear, well, obviously everybody knows the I Have a Dream speech.
Sure.
But you hear a little bit about Dr. King when people are really sharing about him and his life. And I'd heard of The Drum Major Instinct, but I mean, I just knew it existed. That was really it. And so I sat down. It's a 35-minute sermon. I sat down and listened to it on YouTube. Was very inspired. I was like, yeah, I would love to do something with this. So I went through the same process. I printed out the transcript. I read through it. I found areas where I feel songs were appropriate in the context, and got subjects and themes. And that one was definitely from my heart because I wrote all the music from scratch. I just took the themes from the show and just wrote this music.
Yeah.
So The Drum Major Instinct is the second show that I've written. It's based on Dr. King's sermon by the same title, The Drum Major Instinct. We got to perform that in the Brooklyn Public Library on the 50th anniversary of when the speech was given, February 4th, 2018.
So making a direct correlation. I like that.
And Brooklyn Public Library has been a major sponsor and supporter of us throughout pretty much this entire process.
Shout out to Brooklyn throughout this whole process. Go Brooklyn! All right. Yes, but continue.
It's been great to have their support. So that the Drum Major has also done a college tour, so that's been out there quite a bit in the public. And then the third piece I wrote for him is Frederick Douglass piece. So I took one of the Frederick Douglass speeches, which is a little harder because Frederick Douglass is very much an academic. So I had to really dig hard to find the passion.
Right.
But same concept. I took the speech and kind of put it in context with these little chunks and wrote this music. We did a little more of a ensemble cabaret-ish style, just a little smaller, more intimate setting for that one. It was one speaker and 8 singers, and I performed that premiered that in Staten Island. So I have 3 shows that I've done with him over the past 4 years. The state of Virginia was booking us. We were going to be granted, I won't say the name just in case I can't, but a very prestigious foundation was giving us a grant to go into the state of Virginia and really put together a project for the state. We were really going down the direction of slavery with, all the 400 years and all that's been, just a hot topic. But now we're looking at the deconstruction of the monuments and things that are happening up in Virginia, and just maybe, jumping onto that bandwagon. So we have a lot of directions we can go. Again, with COVID, that all kind of got shut down. That was supposed to be happening now as well. And so I'm hoping in 21, once we get a handle on the direction of things and better timelines of what's going on, that we'll be able to get out to Virginia, and I'll get to start on that. I was planning on composing a 3-part project for that, so taking 3 mini projects and making it one huge project. The first portion was supposed to pay homage to all the slaves and the name of the slaves that we don't hear about because our history books are whitewashed, and I hope I can say that in a family setting here, that there is just not much in the history books anymore on slavery and how that all went down, and to give that acknowledgement through music, but also educate people. And I learned so much going to Virginia myself and going to the museums and to the graveyards where the slaves have been laid to rest. All the amazing Black people have done amazing things for our country that are not in the history books.
Right.
And so I wanted to put together a project, a piece that kind of acknowledged that. When I did Antigone and Ferguson, my brain started with the structure of the oratorio, which, from collegiate standings, those are structures that are historic. But I took that Western structure and I deconstructed it into something that made sense to me. And then I repurposed it for Antigone and Ferguson. So I was going to do the same thing with the Requiem, the piece that, acknowledges and pays homage to the dead. And take that Western model as well and deconstruct that as well and do something that would pay homage to the slaves. So that's kind of what's in my brain. And then Polk Miller was the man who, first of all, he created the flea collar, and he's the first white man, to take actual Black people and do music all over the country during that time versus the blackface. It was kind of a shift.
Yeah.
And he's not a great man because he still had slaves, but at least,
of course, always something in the closet. Jeez.
At least, he was moving things forward with that.
Right.
And so same thing. I wanted to take all of his music and deconstruct it and rewrite it and repurpose it for my purposes and put it back out in a new, inventive way. And then finally, there was a paper that kind of documented it and shared what was happening with the lynchings and things that were going on in that time.
Yes.
So I wanted to take the articles and different things and just work with that to come up with something artistic. So there was a lot of plans to really go in and dig deep into Virginia. And I'm excited if that all happens, that's great. And if we go a different direction, it's great as well. But I'm kind of putting that down for my next major project. In the area of Black Lives Matter and social justice and all that's really happening right now. And then another cool thing that I'll throw out there is a little bit of a shameless plug. I met up with Tom down at Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah.
And we're putting together a collaboration that was also supposed to be happening right now.
I feel like that's going to be a big phrase. This was supposed to be happening.
However.
But no, still let us know what's going on.
Working with Shakespeare and Chris Lambert,
I know Chris. I know all those people.
Over Prison Arts. We were collaborating to put together a community version of Pirates of Penzance. And we wanted to do it in a pub, do it somewhere non-traditional, and kind of do a little more of a flash mob musical style. We all show up and musical just starts to kind of happen. And the beauty of it was Chris was going to provide us with formerly incarcerated members that are coming back into society and use them as members of the cast. And then I was collaborating with the police department with my connection and having city and county police officers to come in to have that direct collaboration. And the cool thing is we could put the police officers playing pirates and the formerly incarcerated people playing the law enforcement in the show and just really mix things up. And then we're going to have auditions and pull in a cast for some of the bigger roles and just throw it up and do this. And so we've been bumping the date a bunch. It was supposed to go up Super Bowl weekend, which, obviously that's not going to occur now since we're just kind of all chilling. But I'm hoping also late in 21 that we'll be able to get that together and get that moving. So it was exciting stuff coming up. I saw things shaping in a very beautiful way. As you were saying, my company's really started turning into a production company itself. I opened a publishing company as well. I've been writing a lot of music for choirs. I wrote music for a 4th and 5th grade honor choir last year, a middle school choir that also didn't get to happen because of COVID. So I'm doing a lot of publishing as well. But when this is all over, and everybody's had a lot of time to think during COVID, but I think that my strongest passion's in the classroom. And so regardless of these little pieces that I continue to do, I think I'm going to go back in the classroom in 21, 22. So we'll see. Leaving it all open.
I kind of love the idea that you're like, you know what? I feel like, again, as an artist, even with the pandemic going on, what we just have to do is be like, you know what? We're just going to see, here's some options that I have. Here's some things I have in the back burner. I feel like, Phil, you have such a great balance of stuff going on, even though you have so much happening. So I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. Let's talk about, too, really quickly, where we can find you. Like, if people want to, so you talked about all your projects.
Okay.
If we, want to look you up and stalk you on those social media platforms, where can we casually just Google you? I know that everybody's been Googling you, but where can we find you?
So I am on Facebook as Phil Woodmore. It's been my page. And so I feel honored. I was in college in 2000 when Facebook happened, and SLU was like the 4th or 5th school. I forgot. It was at the top of the list of schools to get it. So I'm an original Facebooker.
I mean, we just talked about all your other accomplishments, but we should have just listed that in the beginning.
At the top. So I'm on Facebook as Phil Woodmore, as I've been since 2003.
Man, isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy.
Now we're in 2020.
Oh, God.
What's happening?
So I started a profile page for my choir called the Phil Woodmore Singers, which you can find information about me on. The best resource is just my website. It's www.philip with one L, PhilipA A, my middle initial, and then Woodmore, WOODMORE.com. So PhilipAWoodmore.com is my website, and you can connect to all these things. If you want to hear any of this cool music, my YouTube channel is also Phil Woodmore. I'm on Instagram as Phil Woodmore. Twitter is Phil Woodmore. So if you type in Phil Woodmore, you will find me on all social media platforms. I'm really hoping to get some music published for Antigone very soon. And I'm just, every time I get ready to do a cast album of the Antigone and Ferguson music, something happens, now COVID. So I'm really hoping that in 21, I can take the time and find the resources to do a cast album for the music. So you can find that on iTunes. But you definitely can listen to all the music from Antigone and see the full version of the show on YouTube if you search it on YouTube. So on my book, I will try to push it out when I release it. I think I'm going to self-publish. I'm very excited that I have the backing of the American for the Arts Foundation up in DC. They did a full profile on me and my work. And so I'm hoping that I can kind of use them as a tool to get the information out on the book. But that'll be on my website and other places when that comes out. I'll share a little secret with that. I have been working with an agent. I wrote the initial version of the book, and she was like, Phil, you really have 3 books here. And I'm like, oh. So I just kind of broke it down. So this first book is going to be just about Antigone. My second book that I am aspiring to write is going to be about music education.
Oh, wow.
And my philosophies on that. And then the third book is actually going to be a memoir, so I can really share my story of growing up and being raised. So I was raised in West County of St. Louis in a time where there weren't many black families out there. And so trying to navigate who I was and how I fit into the community, being a different color than everyone in the community, but also not really connecting with the black community that came from the city in school because, they thought I was kind of, the uppity kid, and then not really being accepted by the white community either. And just navigating that and how, that all came to a pinnacle time for me in high school when I won senior class president, which was literally my first accomplishment of all things.
Again, where was this in the beginning? You got to list these accomplishments, okay?
So wait for my third book and you can read all about it.
Oh, I can't wait. No, thank you. And I'm definitely a nerd. I love to read. So whenever you get these books, let me know. And here's the thing. I know people are big about like Kindles and Nooks, but I really love having that hard copy.
I agree.
And I have a bookshelf. So I was like, a lot of the things I needed in my apartment, I really need a bookshelf. So I've got space, so I'll put up, your 3 books. Woo! I can't wait.
Thank you.
But Phil, I'm so excited. Thank you again for sitting with me. We went from Katie's patio now we can tell Andy and Tony that this was great.
Checked off the list. We did it.
Check off the list. And speaking of things, this episode will be released on a Sunday, depending on when you're watching this. And just remember that you can casually subscribe to the Casually Molly podcast anywhere on any streaming service audio-wise, as well as Facebook and YouTube. The last question we usually ask our guests is, what are you going to casually do now that we're done with our episode?
Oh, my goodness. I actually have to coach the rest of the day, so I'm going to go grab a quick bite to eat, and then I have my first student is Jacob Tudor. Here we go, some shout-outs. Jacob Tudor is my first student, and then I'm teaching Noah Van Es, who are 2 brilliant singers from the Muni. I didn't say anything about that. So I'm the new director of Muni Kids.
Oh, you
Muni,
are?
Yes.
Just add it to the list.
Muni, I'm so sorry that this was an Antigone thing. I've been so honored to be a part.
Well, I did ask about it, so it's okay.
It's so honored to be a part of your season this year. Looking forward to next year and hoping that we can do great things next year. We had a very interesting COVID season, but we got it done. So yeah, I'm the new director of Muni Kids. So I'm coaching those 2 kids, and I have 3 kids after that. And then I'm checking in on one of my really good friends, Jordan Andes, who was just hired as the interim. It's kind of an assistant principal job at the Rossman schools. He's an amazing educator and an amazing young man, and he just got this really cool job after teaching 3 years. Will actually knows, and Will will be excited to hear this. And so I'm going to go celebrate with him on his new position. Okay. And that's my day.
That sounds great. I'm actually going to get something to eat as well, and then I don't really know what I'm going to do after. That's really weird. I usually have a set plan, but oh, well. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful rest of your day, no matter where you are. And just casually stay awesome. Have a good one.